Hello, my name is Mark and I'm co-founder of Lightmap, the developers of HDR Light Studio software. Welcome to this, our first lighting session. With lighting sessions, the concept is I'm going to light a shot with art direction from a professional photographer. By watching this video, you will learn about the thought processes and decisions that the photographer makes during the lighting process. Our first session is with Phil Sills, and we're going to light a very simple scene with two vases. Let's hear a bit more about Phil.
Phil is a London-based advertising photographer and director with over 20 years in the business. Over the years, he has built an enviable reputation for creating high-end imagery for both liquid products and luxury audio technology brands. To bring these products to life in the photograph requires a total mastery of studio lighting techniques. Brands like Lucozade, Ribena, Highland Park Whiskey and Bowers & Wilkins are just some of the clients that have put their trust in Phil's ability to solve their visual problems.
Okay, so without further ado, let's begin the lighting session.
So Phil, I guess, where do we start? You can see my screen.
I can.
I'll be driving the software.
Okay, lovely. Okay, so I think we should start with the composition first. So if I go into a studio and I know I've got to shoot something, what am I going to do with it? I first of all have to place things and understand what it is I'm actually going to shoot. So we've got these two vases here. Now, yeah. I think this is how they're just set up from the off, isn't it? So there's not been any thought or anything applied to this at the moment.
No.
So from a brief point of view, we've already discussed that we are going to be presenting what would be perhaps a simple front cover brochure kind of styled image where the products look nice. There's something about them, but they also serve the purpose of telling the consumer what it actually is. So we're not trying to be overly creative. We're not doing something completely nuts. However, we're going to try and do something that is nice, that demonstrates some sort of lighting capabilities of the software, yet also just tell the basic story of them. So what I'm doing, which is quite funny, so I'm actually imagining myself right now walking into my studio, even though I'm sitting in front of my desk, in front of the computer in my desk. So it's quite funny, really. And I'm looking at these two vases, and I'm thinking, right, well, what do I need to do with them? The first thing I would do would be to say, let's create a bit of a composition with them that perhaps is just slightly nicer than what we're looking at right now. So I believe, Mark, you've got full control over every element of what these, how these products actually sit within this three-dimensional space.
Yes, absolutely. So it's like totally like a virtual camera.
Yeah,
we can
brilliant.
pick objects so we can move them.
Great. So stop there for a sec. So actually, I like the fact that we can do a slightly elevated angle. It's always nice with objects like bottles and that kind of thing if you've got the opportunity to show a bit of depth to them. Otherwise they can appear quite flat. So I like the fact we can look slightly into the tops of the vases here, and we're even seeing a little bit of depth across the handle actually as well, which kind of helps see. So I think that we could lower the camera angle very slightly for a moment. So can you make the camera angle slightly lower?
Yeah. Is that better? Is that low enough?
Yeah, no, don't go any lower. Take it back up a tad.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. And let's spin, just so try and get a bit of repetitive composition going on within the shot. Let's spin the blue vase around 180.
Right. I'm going to do this from the top because it's a bit easier for you to see what's going on.
Oh yeah.
I'll take that.
All right. So this
I'm not
is
a master of this. I'm a master of Light Studio, but not of every 14 pieces of software that we plug into. Let me just move that over there.
That's cool. Okay, so that's a plan view, is it?
Yeah, it's a plan view. Yeah,
Right.
so it's just makes it a lot easier for moving things if we put it in a plan view. Okay, so that's where we're at.
Yeah, and just to try and keep the feeling of a bit of depth into the image, let's bring the small vase slightly in front of the blue vase, but obviously not so it covers it too much. So it just kind of starts to interact. We get some kind of some kind of tension between the two objects.
Yeah. So I've kind of, because we're in the world of CG, I can do things that are physically impossible. So I'll just go into the top view to move it so it's not going through the other object.
Okay, so
back to my camera view now.
So they're separated, right? Okay.
How's that looking? I can move it left and right. What?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm looking, mate. I'm looking.
Does it help if I move the camera a bit?
Because what I'm not liking at the moment is the interaction of the corner of that pink vase. It just feels a bit messy. So move the pink vase slightly over the blue a bit more. So move it slightly left. Yeah. Okay. So for me, I think that's a slightly nicer interaction. And even though we're not actually trying at the moment, we are seeing how the two products kind of are starting to see each other as well, which is interesting. So
I've got to say, it does already look nicer.
Yeah,
much nicer image.
Okay, great. So next question. As with everything, I would need to understand from a client perspective what it is they actually want to do with this image. Where's it going to go? How's it going to be used? How's it going to be seen? And so, for instance, is it going to go against a white background? At the minute, it's just against I know we haven't even discussed backgrounds in terms of what we've actually got in shot. But we've got, say if it was for cutout, it would be against white. Great for e-commerce, perhaps not overly interesting from a point of view of trying to get people a bit more emotionally involved with the shot. So let's try and think of doing something a bit more interesting than that. And for the sakes of something with a bit more impact, where we can have some fun with the lighting on these two very simple objects, let's just put them against a black background for the moment. Can we do that?
Right. Yes. So at the moment, we've got this single image is wrapping around the whole scene, and that is creating the lighting, but it's also creating the background. So if I was to take the brightness of this down to 0, then that would give you a black background, but you wouldn't be able to see things very well. So I can put stuff behind this to make it like it's black. So if I go to my lights here, and then I find my backdrops, and I put a backdrop in, and then I put the brightness of that to 0, that's now effectively on a black backdrop.
Yeah.
And then you can see the vases because there's some other more ambient lighting around. I guess as there would be in a room. If you're in a room, there would be other lighting around. I mean, what I could do, just as an example, is I could just find a random interior.
Just to show what this environment's actually doing.
Yeah, and then put that behind the backdrop.
Yeah.
And then it'll give the impression that the objects are within this space on this black backdrop. So I will just adjust this so we get everything in the as we're lighting stuff, so we get everything in the shot. And just one moment while I adjust this to be a bit smaller, so we get the whole composition in. Then go back here.
Okay, so that's interesting. Yeah, so basically what those vases are seeing is the environment from the HDR background.
Yes.
Is that correct? Yeah. it looks to me like also there's interaction with this black backdrop on the edges of the vases as well. So they're kind of cutting off the vases from seeing the entirety of that HDR background. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, that's right. So now, if you didn't want that and you wanted almost just to control the background, we could get another light. So if I do a softbox and just, I'll just pick, hold on a minute, there's a better one. There's a light tent. That's a good shape. So if I just double click that.
A light tent.
Yeah, I know it's like swearing to a photographer, I guess.
Well, they have their purpose sometimes.
Yeah. And then if I turn the brightness of that down to 0, and that basically is sat behind, creating the black background, but it's not obscuring as much of the reflections.
Yeah,
so if I turn back on that backdrop, that was like sitting on a piece of curved cardboard, and then you get all these other issues.
Yes.
And then if I turn that off and we're just looking at that, it's like having a piece of black paper behind the objects, but they're kind of floating in the air.
Much smaller. Yeah. So that's great. So obviously what we're going to do, we're not actually going to be using that background or that room environment that you showed us, but I think what that's illustrated to me is I suppose the ease of the functionality of from a photographic point of view of eliminating the background, cutting in and interacting with the object, which means that we can now actually start lighting the objects without having things in the way, which is a classic situation in the physical studio where I would place an object down and straight away I'm having to ask myself, what is this object seeing? How can I light this object? Is anything blocking how I can light this object? And from my understanding with the 3D CG world is that that's actually much less of a problem, isn't it? That's a great position to be in. So as a photographer, I can just say I don't have to worry about that quite so much. I can just think much more in terms of what the lighting is doing and what and the effects that can be created from that. Is that right?
Yeah, that's totally right. Because from this, looking at this image provides 360-degree lighting control, really, because those objects are just floating in space. They don't need to be mounted on some kind of stand so they don't fall over. So the benefit of things in the computer is they can just float in the air. So there's not the restrictions. Yeah, totally right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess let's have some fun with some lighting then. I would, first of all, we're going to switch off that existing HDR background, aren't we? We're going to lose that.
Well, yeah, I'll put it down not very bright for now, I'm thinking, because otherwise we won't be able to see anything.
Well, okay, so as soon as we I've got you, but as soon as we put in a new light, we're going to eliminate it, aren't we? Because
we can turn it off. Turn that off.
It's definitely putting in lots of natural reflections that because there's no context to the environment, it wouldn't be a great thing to do. You wouldn't want to just grab a background.
I'll just put on this fake background, just a gradient background, and I'll turn that off.
Okay.
And then I'll turn that brightness down. And then at least, it's more subtle than seeing all these unwanted reflections. So at least you can see the vases at the moment.
Okay. All right, fine. So when I'm lighting, the first thing that I have to think about is what is going to be my main light source. What is going to be there's always one light source that is the most important one that is going to give almost is like the magic to the shot. You have to get that right. So all the other stuff can wait. You've got to get your first light right. If you that's what I always look for, because once I think that's it, I'm starting to get a feeling. You can get a feeling from that very first light source you put in of what it is that you're trying to do. So, what I'm not liking here from looking at this straight away is that I can see a lot of bounce reflection from the surface. That's really annoying me because it doesn't make any sense to me, because why is there light coming from the underneath the surface when I'm actually looking at a black background? So
I'll just switch that around for you, just so that at least we get rid of that annoyance.
Okay, great.
So I've literally just flipped that kind of upside down, so we can just see.
Perfect.
The vase
Okay,
now.
great. Okay, brilliant. So let's start off. I would be thinking about a big left-hand side light. Now that if I try and describe what that light would be, it would be I wouldn't be lighting the vases directly to get a really hard highlight on it. That's not the effect that I would want to be creating. It might be suitable for some people. Obviously, this is all subjective, right? Lighting is subjective. You can do what you want. There are no rules. However, for me, I think I would be wanting to try and start looking at a light that's going to describe the quality, the finish of the vases, whilst also starting to describe the shape a bit more as well. So we're going to have to work on it a bit, but if you can give me what would be quite... If I was to put a strip light through a piece of trace, so that's diffuser material, from the left-hand side, I would want it to be quite big. So big for me in the studio means it needs to be relatively close in. It's not a light that is 10 feet away from the object. It's something that's quite close in. So the idea there is that not only does it give me a reflection in the vase, it will also give me some ambient light wrap around, some spill. So can you start off, I don't know, so a vertical light from the left-hand side, big, through a diffuser, so you've got a little bit of soft bleed either side. Let's just start there.
Right. So I'm going to kind of interpret what you're asking for, probably in stages, where I'll get something in, and then we could talk about what you want to do to it.
Fine.
I just press play on this view and bring in the model into our own view here.
Okay, that's the HDR Light Studio view. That's actually the lighting view. Right.
Yeah, that lets me position lights. So I've just got the model in there now if we want to position the lights, which we will shortly.
Yeah.
And I'll just start with any light that we make, we can totally change the properties of it. So these are almost like little shortcuts to get you a starting point. So I'm just going to make a rectangular light. It just goes by default in the middle of the canvas. And then you're saying that you want it towards the left. So I'll click on here.
Mm-hmm.
And are we wanting this to be vertical?
Yes.
Right. So on here, I've got a setting in the rotations, the advanced rotation, where I can set that to be vertical lock. And then anywhere I move this, it will always be vertical.
Okay. Right. Okay. So I see.
So I'm just going to click. I'm going to make it bigger because you wanted it quite big. And you wanted it quite tall, did you?
Yeah. I would say keep going for the minute. Let's just see how that develops.
I just want to check my settings.
Sure.
Of how big the map is I'm sharing. Yeah, that's fine. Obviously, because we're recording two screens at the same time and we're doing all of this, everything's a bit slower than normal in terms of the interactivity that I get in the software from my side, just so you know.
Okay.
It's absolutely workable and it's fine, but some things are a bit slower than they normally would be because the computer's doing quite a lot of work basically.
Okay, no problem. It seems pretty quick to me. Honestly, it would have taken me 2 hours already to do this, so that's fine.
Right. Okay.
Not quite,
so
but
where do I go?
Okay, so I now look at this and go, right, what do I like? What don't I like? Again, take us back to what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to explore what this main light is going to be doing coming from the left. Now, if we talk about the blue vase, it's not looking too bad, really. it's quite odd. It doesn't seem very straight on the right hand side, lower down. But
On there.
yeah,
I think it's the model itself
right.
is not as perfect as maybe this vase would be in real life. So that
Well.
definitely that's coming from the modelling, which I've not got a lot of control
No,
over
that's
at this
absolutely
point.
fine. And you know what? Of course, when you shoot products for real, half the time they're not quite straight or square or perfect either. So this is a classic example where I look at that line and go, why has that got a wobble in it? Try and make a decision to make sure that I'm not doing something stupid to my light source to create that wobble. If then I realise it is to do with the product, I then have to go, okay, I've got to live with that and move on, really. So, okay, that's fine. So bits I like, bits I don't like. I like the height of it. I think the way it's catching the neck areas of the bottle. Both vases. Sorry, I keep calling them bottles. Why aren't bottles? They're vases. So I like the way it's catching the necks. And on the blue vase, the way it kind of carries down, and then it hits this flat edge towards the base. It needs to be graded off. It's far too bright. We don't want it continuing all the way down, all the way underneath it, because that looks really false. So can you do something where you give the impression of this bottom of this gradient, I suppose, is this light falling off, going to... can you flag it? Can you block the light in a subtle way so it's not a hard line, but it will just fade the highlight off towards the bottom? How does that look?
Yeah, there's a number of ways I can do it. Depending on the way I do it, will mean other things, like will change the direction of other things that we can do with the light, kind of. So if there's any... So if we weren't to do that part now, is there anything else to do with the appearance of this light?
Fine.
Because it's almost like if I might go down, there might be a couple of routes I go down to get that effect, because I could kind of make a second light and put it over the top to control it. That'd be one way. Or I could actually change the appearance of the light itself. So if I go to, we have like a main look of the light, and then we have a separate area where you can control how transparent it is, which can do the effect that you want. So I can do that. But then if you have other things you want to do, I might choose a different way of doing the same thing, which I know isn't like a great answer.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's all good. Okay.
So in terms of the actual, left to right,
yes,
top to bottom, and also just so you know, if I kind of change this brightness here, because this is a high dynamic range image, that just looks white, but there is a bit of graduation on it. So once we start doing more things, I'll start kind of doing this just so you can understand how light is falling on this shape. Because it can just look like a white block, and it's not. When you turn it down a bit, you can see there's graduations going off. But
yes, I think that's
later.
okay.
I'll show you that later.
Great. Okay, so that light then at the minute, I think it's important if we're presenting an object against a dark background to make sure that we can obviously see the back edge of the product. Now, obviously, it doesn't have to be a highlight, but it certainly has to be lit. But why don't we look at the minute in terms of getting this big left-hand light further around the left, so that it actually starts to catch the back edge of the blue vase. Could you show me that, please?
Yeah, so we get rid of this bit.
Yeah.
So it's okay. So we can... the easiest way is we just start moving it and just seeing which direction to move it. I can do light painting in terms of on here, but sometimes if it's a small adjustment, I would just basically move it on here, probably as you would in the studio, just start slowly moving a line.
I would indeed, yeah. So I can still, it's hard for me to see in detail because I'm not looking at a close-up viewpoint. I mean, how would you check that back end of that vase is actually being lit?
I'd probably turn this background light that's dull, I'd probably turn that up.
Just so you could see whether there's an edge on it.
Oh, yeah, hold on.
Yeah.
Let's. I'm going to label them. I'm just going
Sure.
to label this background, and then I won't get confused as to what's going on.
Right.
So I'll turn that up a bit, and then I'll be able to see if there's a little dark line going off. So
Yeah.
with this light, I know I can still move that a little bit further across.
Yes, yeah. That starts to go right. So if you stop there, so
Yeah.
that looks to me how this is the kind of thing that I would expect to see. So you start seeing the light really catching the back edge of the object, which is quite nice. We've got a good definition. I'm talking about the blue vase at the moment. We'll worry about the pink one in the moment. I think that's working quite well. What I would change now, I would leave the light where it is, even leave the intensity of where it is, perhaps.
Yeah.
But then start thinking about that front edge of that highlight. So it's a bit hard. As you say, it's a bit of it looks like a flat light at the moment. So what I would like to see is some quite strong fall off in that kind of the front almost 20% of that highlight. So if you think about the right hand edge,
Yes.
yeah.
yes,
So
yeah.
just as you said, as you almost indicating there, almost like start to vignette that off, get some shadows. It's almost so that highlight really falls off. So it starts. It's not something that I am seeing, in terms of this hard line. So is that something we can look at?
Yeah. So I would apply a gradient to do that.
Yeah.
So, and then what this looks like, you can basically see here. That's like a flat on preview of what it is we're working on. So I need to rotate that. And then the way that this is falling off is controlled by this ramp here. So if I open that up, there's a little graph there. I can change that to Bezier so that it is smooth in between these points I put on here. So then I've got kind of total control over this thing. It's just so this is like shaping the graduation of the light, basically.
Yeah, it's actually doing the opposite of what I wanted though. So I wanted the back edge of the vase to be bright, and then and then the graduation falling off towards that right hand edge. Yeah, different to perhaps what you might logically might think.
No, that's fine.
I was just exploring it as a nice lighting option, really.
Yeah, let's.
The fall off on the front edge, not the back. So, yeah, starts to go. Yeah.
So it's just then how far around you want that to.
I would bring a bit more light back in, so reduce the graduation a little bit. Right, great. So keeping that there, apart from the fact we know we've got a bit of underlight kicking around the bottom of the vase that we don't want, but we said we'll deal with that a second stage. I think that's a relatively nice light. Now, it doesn't mean to say that I will stick to it, but certainly from a starting point, I think it's worthwhile showing. The only thing that is a problem at the moment is that couple of things. So there's no colour in the vase. Now there's no colour in the vase because this is exactly what will happen in the studio. There's no backlight. Everything is backlit at the minute. So that's just a flare light. So there's no colour. The colour will come from a front light. So I'm aware that that product is not right. However, what is attractive to me as a photographer is the way that light is wrapping around and what it is doing, and it starts to feel like that's quite a nice looking object. So I think it's interesting. That right hand side actually now needs a really hard edge. Can you stick me a really hard cut off edge on that on the right hand side?
On this side.
Yeah. Even though I know it's in the shadows, but we would need to make sure there's a hard edge, even if we can hardly see it. Was that
Oh,
complete?
I see.
So-
Want so it doesn't look so. You can detect some kind of edge.
Yes. So it's just we just start to see an edge. So that's almost there. Right. Fine. Leave
So
that there
that's
for the
all-
moment.
Is that because that's then helping you understand that this is glossy?
100%. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Now it's so subtle. You might think, well, I can hardly see it. But at least we know it's there, and we might enhance that, or that might come through at a later stage. So if we leave that light alone for the moment,
Okay.
and I'm thinking that even what it's doing to the pink vase is interesting in the sense that we've obviously got interaction, haven't we? We're seeing the shape of the reflection of the blue vase in the pink vase, and even though it's kind of looking a bit like a puddle of light, I'm not saying it's wrong at the moment, so I'm gonna stick with that for the moment as well.
Okay.
I think now next thing would be for me to say, right, well, I'm going to need some front light coming in. I need the front light coming in because we need colour. We need to show that, if we're going to sell these products, we need to show it's blue, and we need to show the proper colour of the pink. So my next light, I would be starting off with another light, and this will be almost a top light, and I would probably be throwing over. Now let me think about this. Maybe a strip light or kind of a softbox, Mark. So do you know what I mean? So something that will be perhaps kind of 4x3 or 4x2 in shape. Something quite high up. Something so it's not directly over the top, but it's not coming from the front. So it's like a high 3/4 position. Could you show me that?
Yes. When you said those sizes, was that like feet?
Oh no, I was just thinking proportionally. So something.
Oh,
so
right.
if I was to put a strip light, if I was looking at these vases now, and I'm going to put the light over the top, running left to right, so it's not pointing away from me. It's running across the set. Something that is longer than it is deeper, basically, as a starting point.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's pop this on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not looking right, but I'm going to adjust that.
It really does look like a strip, doesn't it?
Yeah. Just because you were saying strip, I just wanted to make sure.
Oh,
it's
okay,
right.
yeah. So you were thinking in terms of like a strip light that you'd see in the ceiling, right? Okay, that's interesting. So when I think about a strip light, yeah, okay, you're right. I should have been a bit clearer. So in terms of soft boxes, the kind of soft boxes that I work with are obviously square ones, big rectangular ones, also then say strip boxes then. Where the actual size of it would be like 4 by 1 foot.
All right. Okay.
That's the kind of light I was thinking of. My fault for not being.
No, that's fine. So if I pop one of these on.
Mm-hmm. And can you just explain where this light actually comes from? What is this light that you're bringing in here?
So basically, we've got a library of photographed studio light sources that are high dynamic range. And they're about 4K resolution each. So these are just little thumbnails.
Mm-hmm.
So in the software, that you can use photographic content for your lights, or there is procedural generated content, which is like where you see in the ramps where I can kind of adjust how things fall off. We have that as well. So if there isn't something, so something can either be kind of photographic, or not, and then you can kind of mix the two things anyway. So
okay,
it's quite flexible. So it's really about what do you want something to look like, and then I can use what we have in the software to get the effect you want. Mixing the different things together.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I was to put this light at the top here, that is directly over the top of the scene now, so you can now see that reflecting as though it was directly over the top, and it's not that big, so I can scale that up. So this is where, because we're working on a HDR map, this will look very confusing to you.
Yeah, I'm starting to trying to get my head around the fact that this is a 360. This is what the light would look like from a 360 point of view. If I'm the product in the middle of that, this is what I would see. Is that right?
That's right. That is what you're seeing.
But I do seriously struggle with that as a concept.
Totally.
Have to say,
Yeah, totally. We can make lights that become 3D in the software by using this button called Area Light, and then it will still look like this on the map, but it will make a 3D light source. So I could then zoom out of this view and kind of literally show you where in space that light was. But I think if there's no good reason that you, other than to show you where it is, that you want it like that, then it might be worth sticking with what we've got.
Yeah, no, it's
and you're almost telling me, what do I want this to do to the object? 'Cause that's what I'm trying to solve for you. What do you want the lighting to do to the object?
Yes, yeah, because it's the total opposite of what I do in the studio. If I'm standing in a studio, my studio is 20 feet long by 15 feet wide by, I don't know, 20 feet high. And I've got a set in the middle of it, or wherever it is. I'm aware of the relationship of the light that I'm putting in from a distance point of view from the product in that studio space. Whereas it almost don't have to worry about that now. I am just purely looking at how the product is interacting with this light source, and it's just it's great. It's quite liberating, really. It just means that all the restrictions that I physically have to deal with are things that really are not there anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is awesome.
But it can be a bit confusing. So if you're saying what you want is to see, would expect that light to be reflecting in these top surfaces, then I would click on the top surface and it would move the light to give you that effect.
Right. So got you.
It's very driven from what is that doing to this object, and I can place it to reflect to do that. You see.
Yeah. So you're effectively, when you click on your HDR Light Studio screen there, you can you're almost telling the software where the middle of that light is, or
that's right.
Yes.
Now it doesn't have to be the middle. We could this little handle here. I can move the handle on the surface of this light here.
Yeah.
And then when I click, now that's because of where I've moved it to, the position I've clicked on, it's positioned that handle, and then obviously the light is rotated and hanging down, which is why you can now see it in the view. So if I clicked to the other side of the light, now where I click on here is where that light is starting, and then it's moving up the other way.
Okay.
So again, it can be slightly confusing when you're not used to using it.
Okay. All right. Let me try and. Okay, great, good theory. Let me try and get back into the practical of what this thing actually looks like. Then, so So the thought process about me putting a top light in was that I was thinking, okay, look, we've got some shapes here that we need to deal with. We need to show. So we need to show the ellipse of the top of the vase. You're right. We need to show the handle detail. How are we going to show that? How are we going to demonstrate that? Of course, as soon as you start popping a light up, it starts to interact with the other areas of the vases because they're all round. They're seeing everything. Classic situation. So, could you just kind of almost show me what that light looks like in different places? So at the minute, is it directly over the top? Is it behind? Is it closer to the camera? Where would you say that is that light?
That light, if you imagine behind the object, it's just slightly above, out of shot, and it's tilting over. So, and if I was to move that all the way to the top,
tilting towards the camera.
tilting towards the camera.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And I can tell that because that red dot is telling me that it's a front edge that you've positioned.
Yes, that's the edge I'm positioning it by
Right.
now.
Okay, that's cool.
That little handle. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so if I was to think about moving that light up and down on a stand, in the studio, that would be basically bringing the light either closer to the product or further away, and therefore the reflections and the lighting will change because of that. And very often, if you put a light in, you might understand, or you might think you know where it's got to come from, but you know the exact nature of how the product reacts to that light is going to change depending on where that light is. So now I don't know whether that's even something that even works in this 3D virtual world. Does it? I mean, is that something you can show me? Can you demonstrate that?
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this into an actual physical light, because it seems like the placement of this over the top is quite critical, and you'll be able to see the fact that it is actually making a real 3D light. So I think that might be something just to try at least. So I will take this to the top of the map and I'll position it perfectly at -90, 180. So that's just totally and utterly centering it at the top of the map. And then I turn it into an area light.
Okay.
And then if I drag that in, that right there you see the physical light move, and it's actually there in the scene. I'm just going to check in the 3D software. Yes, that's correctly set up, so that's all good. So if I then zoom out of here using the zoom, I'm not actually changing my I'm kind of zooming out of the image. I'm not really moving the camera. I'm just showing more of what's in the shot. So then if I start to dolly that out, you can now that really is a physical camera, a physical light over the top of those objects. And if I use this button here, I can solo just the effect of that light and turn off all the other lights. So now you're just seeing that 3D light.
Great.
Over the object.
And what you've just done there, Mark, is very interesting, because sometimes in the studio as well, in order to actually really say, well, what exactly are these lights doing? Because it's very easy to come up with things in your mind about what you think may work, but actually to look at individual lights is important. So that's interesting. You've just done that for me there, because that's actually really helpful. So all I'm looking at there is a reflection, the physical light that is coming from that top strip light, as you're showing me in your HDR screen. Right. Okay.
Yes.
So can you make that bigger? Can you make that light bigger? Can you change the size of it for me, please?
Yeah. So that's now, substantially bigger. If I just move this handle, I'll be able to move it, make it more centered over there. So it's quite big. Would you like it bigger?
Not particularly.
Okay.
So I mean, I think what I'm starting to feel a bit of conflict here is that I know I want to depict what's going on at the top of these products, so the ellipse, the handle. I'm really not liking the reflection that's on the body of the vase. So at the moment I'm thinking, well, where else can that light go? What else can we? How else can we look about the light? So what about that light at that size was to start traveling backwards behind the product at the same height? What can we see that?
Oops, if we just do. I can start kind of taking that, so I'm almost like tilting it.
So you're starting to tilt it
back.
But almost as though it's coming behind the product?
Yes.
Okay. So where am I actually seeing the effect of this though, Mark? Okay, right.
Yes, in there. So it's quite an odd one, isn't it? In fact,
it's doing some really nice things to the tops of the handles. I think we can all say it's quite nice. It's definitely the kind of angle of light that I use quite a lot in the studio. It's coming from behind, so it's quite a strong light. It's quite low down. It's quite big. It's got some nice wrap around the back edges of the product, but obviously it's just these white reflections around the body of the product are frustrating in terms of what they're doing. So can you keep on moving that light further back for me so I can see how that develops, please?
Yes. So I'm probably going to bring it into view now when it moves it.
Yeah, okay. So that's gone too far.
Yeah.
Although you could take it up, so it physically you can't see it in set. But you actually going to say to me you're just going to make that light disappear like that? Sorry, Mark, did you just move that light up then?
I did move it.
Yes.
You can do a trick where the light can be behind, and even though you can make it invisible from being seen by the camera. So that is a trick. So this camera visibility, I could turn that off, and that should make that so its effect is there.
Yep.
It's still there, but the camera, now you can't see it in this view because it's turned off from the camera, which is an absolute cheat.
Genius. Genius, mate. That's music to my ears. That is. Okay, so keeping that there, so we know the light's physically behind, but you've switched it off. I can't actually see it now in the shot.
No.
Lee.
I mean, can I just say?
Yes.
So if you're trying to get a reflection just in this part, are you saying that you don't want this part affecting really?
I'm still exploring that idea, but I'm not liking it at the moment. What are you thinking?
Well, I could make some very small lights, and I could position them so they kind of just reflect in this top part of the handle, and they might not affect this because they're almost, imagine like having a small piece of cardboard that's illuminated that is just sat behind the top edges of these two handles. So we kind of light each handle separately, and then you don't see, you might not then see it in the rest of the object because it's such a small light that I put there.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Because we've got like this really big light.
Yeah.
And maybe that's, because I'm looking at that and thinking, if we make this narrower, oops, wrong way, if I just undo that.
Can you keep that light where it is and just show me another light? So switch that one off and create a new light.
Yeah.
So in case we can come back to it.
Yeah. So I'll keep that light there, but I'll turn it off. And then I'll just create another softbox and drop that on. Let's just fit this in the view. I'm going to just focus on this one handle here. And that new light I've put in, I'm going to click on there. So it positions it to reflect in that handle. I'll then make a 3D light out of it, but I'll bring it very close. This is where the software is getting a little bit unresponsive. Make that, say, 1. So I just have to go into this software and just check a setting to try and make it a bit more responsive, because I'm recording the screen and there's a lot going on. So the threads, I'm going to put 8. This might free up some this might make it a bit faster now. So if I go back.
No problem.
Right. So I click there. It's funny, you can see my mouse is kind of bouncing around. It's because it's recording the screen. It's just quite a lot going on.
Yeah. So what you're saying is we're experiencing a little bit of lag purely because obviously we're recording everything, and it's taking up a lot of RAM on the computer.
the resources are a little bit stretched at the minute.
How would you expect the performance to be normally for a user without having to record screens and stuff?
It'd be just silky smooth. It's because I'm recording two HD displays at the same time on the same computer.
Yeah.
So that recording and encoding is taking up quite a lot of the capacity of the computer.
Okay.
Which doesn't help. So
fine.
So that's that one light. So if I solo that one light, and then we can. It's funny because it's got worse. It's freed up a bit there. Right. If I then start to orbit that. So it's just an idea from what you're saying basically. So that sorts that one. Obviously, it's still seen.
Well,
it's still being seen.
Yeah, I would say it does and it doesn't. So yes, it does what you said you were going to do. However, I don't really think there's a nice quality of light in that. So from a point of view of it feels very flat. It feels very close in. The line behind the line around the ellipse of the vase is a bit thin because it's seeing a small object, right? Can you do me a favour? Can you just switch that one off that you put in and put the other one back on so I can kind of do a comparison here?
Yeah, totally. So that's where we're at before.
Okay. So so you're right in the sense that obviously you are aware of things that you can do within this software that would be something that I probably wouldn't be tackling, or I wouldn't be using that approach in the studio. You putting a small piece of card in, when actually what I'm trying to do is find another really important piece of light. So just for the moment, we'll keep your little piece of card to one side as look. We might have to go back to that.
I won't be offended.
No, and I might be wrong as well. This is the beauty of the whole thing, But I would like to continue exploring this light source for the moment. Can you do that thing where you switch it off so I'm not actually seeing it behind the product?
Yes.
Great. Now, with this current light, I'd almost like to move it to the right-hand side and then perhaps almost tilt it down diagonally, just so it starts to become more of a rear right-hand diagonal light. Does that make sense? So in a sense, I'm expecting to see the highlight start to stretch down the right-hand side of the vase.
Okay, so I'm going to try clicking on here, which will take it towards the right.
Ooh. Okay.
It's gone quite a long way to the
Stop there for a minute though. So that's interesting. So it's gone to the right, yet it's
kind of got behind
it's really affecting the left-hand side. Can we block that? Because I'm liking what the light is doing. I'm going to be honest. I mean, it might not be perfect, but it's quite nice.
Yeah.
Can you keep that light position? Block it from hitting the right-hand side. Sorry, my mistake. Block it from hitting the left-hand side of the vases.
Yes. So I'll put a gradient on the light on its alpha to make it transparent and just play with when that starts.
Right, stop there for a minute, but we've actually kind of killed the... Can you keep that where it is, make that slightly brighter now?
Yes.
Okay, a tad more. Right, keeping that there. Can you switch on the left hand, our first main light, please, just for a second, so we can see how that's all working. Okay, so this is interesting because we are starting to see combination of 2 lights here with a bit of a look to it. That is not bad. I'm actually really liking that second light. I think that's working quite well. Funny enough, when I go back to revisit that first light now, I'm not liking it so much, and I think it's because it feels too soft. Obviously, we went through this process at the beginning where I introduced a graduation across it because I wanted the back edge of the product to feel like it was being hit and then the light falling off. So I think it's falling off too quickly. So could we go back to that first light and reduce the graduation that's going across it?
Yes, we can. Yes. So if I just go back to that light and open up the little graph.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying that you want this edge brighter now?
I think I would say reduce the amount of the graduation as the light goes from left to right. It falls off very quickly. Yeah, so bring that back a little bit.
How's that?
Show me a bit more, please. God, it's tough. Okay, so you know what? I don't know whether I I don't think I like that any more than before. Can you go back in steps? How easy is it to go back in steps?
Easy. So just undo, Control Z. And just keep undoing those individual changes.
Could you keep going back step by step? We're going to head back towards where we were. So stop there for a moment. Right. Okay. Funny enough. Is that where we were before I started?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's interesting. So I had a look at it. I thought I didn't like it, but actually, when we bought that left-hand highlighting clearer, I actually didn't like it anymore either. So let's leave that for a moment. Okay.
Yes.
So I think at the minute we've got some nice shape to the product.
Yes.
It's got a look.
I like that handle. With
Yeah.
this edge pushing up.
Yeah, it's got a feel. We definitely need front light. However, I think we both know that if we start adding in another reflection, it's going to start looking really super complicated, isn't it? So this is where I would be bringing in a spotlight. I would be saying, okay, what I want to do is hit these products with a really bright spotlight, probably somewhere from, I'm thinking, so this would be, if I'm the camera, I know, looking at these products, I would be placing the spotlight to my right,
Yes.
quite high up. So almost like sunshine coming down,
Yes.
hitting these products with, and then accepting that because it's a glossy finish, it's going to give me a reflection, a spot, but that is something that I would accept if it worked, and then in retouching take that out afterwards. So could you show me a spotlight, please?
Yes. So
And it would be a focused spotlight. So does that make sense? So focused, bright in the middle, falling off to the outside.
okay. So I've got something like this, which I think might work. It's got some softness to it. It's very bright in the middle, and it falls off.
Okay.
Slightly blurred. Slightly blurred light.
Yeah.
So I will. So you're saying you want that top right coming down?
Yeah. Yes.
So if I drag and I drop that, using the illumination mode, so it will drop it to illuminate where it will illuminate where I drop it. So I pop that there just to get started.
And what
it's
does?
It's going to be too big.
Sure.
By the way, to start with, and then we can adjust it. So where would you? So let's make it quite bright.
Yeah.
That's what you wanted.
Yeah. I want to see what happens when we pick. Yeah. Okay. So that's too bright because as you can see, it's overlighting the product. So
I'm going to make it smaller. So
Yeah.
it's a smaller highlight.
Okay. Very good. Yes. Reduce that as much as possible, please. Right. Stop. Okay. Probably killed it a bit too much now.
Okay. Do you think I should make it bigger or just make it brighter?
Brighter.
Okay.
Okay.
What do you think?
I mean, this is the reality of putting anything in. It's going to show up in the shiny product. Can you lower that light, please?
Yes.
So
I'll just do that by lowering it in this view.
Yeah, it's going to reduce the impact of that highlight.
Yes.
So make it more specular. So it's interesting. You can see there the product is seeing it in two different places. It sees it on the neck where it curves, and it also sees it on the edge, where the rounded edge as it goes down towards the front. So that's completely natural. I would expect to see that. Can you make it lower again, please? Can you make that light lower until it starts to become bigger in that front?
Oh, I get you. So yeah, now I'm travelling down the front of the object.
Okay, got it. Really, it's amazing. So in effect, where would that light be if this was a physical environment? Where would that light be now?
If it was on a surface, very slightly under the surface.
Under the surface, yes.
So if I turn on the guides here, that is the horizon. So it's slightly under the horizon.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, it looks too low because you can see the way it's kind of illuminating into the front edges.
Yeah,
it feels very unnatural. That's not. So that needs to go back up.
Yes.
Okay, can we try something else? While we're looking at this light, exploring the options, let's take it higher. So it almost, it's the kind of thing that would be really hard to do in the studio. You have to start putting a flash head on a boom and start taking that light quite high up, and then start taking that more over the top of the product. So could you show me what that looks like, please?
Yes. So that's over the top now. That's as high as I can go without going over the other side and coming around the back. Okay.
What I like about that, just point of conversation, we still kept some drama in the lighting. So this spotlight is effectively starting to pick up the color of the blue and the pink, whilst still leaving shading on the front edge and sort of shading on the top of the necks, which is interesting. Can you take that light to the right hand side, please?
Now, to do that,
further around the light.
I'd have to bring it down a bit because it's directly over.
Yeah.
I'd have to bring it down.
Yeah.
Before we can be then going in towards a.
Yeah, it's almost as though the light's starting to almost go behind the object.
All right.
Stop there. No, stop there. That's fine. No, so go back a step.
Oh, okay.
Right. Okay. So what it's doing now is, can you make that light bigger, please?
Yes.
I am thinking.
It's not dreadful, is it?
No, it's not. It's not dreadful. I mean, sometimes you can make things overcomplicated, and I wonder. There's something not right. Make that slightly smaller, please. Right. So stop there. So I feel more comfortable with that. Make it slightly brighter, please. And again. Right, stop there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just recap where we are. We have a left-hand highlight. Can you switch that off for a minute so I can see what that's doing?
just to isolate.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is going to turn those off. I'm going to unsolo stuff.
So we can always flick lights on and off just to see the balance of everything.
So there's one light, and I'm just going to rename that left light.
Yeah.
So we know what we're doing. So there's that one.
Yeah.
There's then this one, which is actually a 3D light, because we made it a physical 3D light.
Okay.
But the camera visibility is off, and if it was on, that's actually where it is. It's kind of visible behind it.
Yeah.
So we've cheated that.
Yeah.
So that we've got that effect.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that would look better if it was a softer light? If its edges were softer?
I would suspect no, because I think then you start changing the quality of the product.
Okay.
We have a hard glossy vase in shot, and it's always a challenge with anything glossy, because I shoot glossy stuff the whole time. Is if you just hit it with a really big hard light all the time, it will look absolutely horrible. So then you start to bring in graduation and light movement, and then all of a sudden you suddenly find you've made this thing look soft. And that's actually why I've got a conflict in my head about this left-hand light. It troubles me. It doesn't feel quite right for the product, which is really nice. We are going to have to go back and revisit it. But anyway, that's just because it's there but not there, and I'm going to have to come up with a solution to that I think is right. So I mean that right. The only thing we could do with that right hand light, have you renamed it now?
I will now. Right. Got to call it right rear.
Yeah.
It's kind of behind it as well.
Can you make that more of a hot spot in the middle, and for it to slightly graduate off towards the edges a bit, leaving the current shading that you've already got? Is that something you could add on to that light?
You want a boost to the light there, do you?
So it's like almost like adding a very subtle vignette, a darker vignette around the edges of that light source, just to see whether or not it.
So to kind of soften that.
Okay, so you call it soften. For me, I'm not changing the physical hardness of the edge. I am just adding in a darker vignette, so it just feels like we've got a bit of shading in there, leaving the middle center part of the light brighter. However you interpret that.
Right. Okay. So I can do that with another grey. I'm just thinking here. If I do another gradient.
So you can add a gradient over gradient, can you?
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're starting to get it. You probably don't need to do that much more.
Okay.
There's not enough contrast in that light, though.
No. I'm just trying to find it. Give me a moment. So what we've got is that is in the wrong direction. Take that. Okay.
Yeah.
So if I turn that off, then if I turn it on, I have taken some brightness out of those edges. So if you see this horizontal gradient, that is now controlling the brightness of this also. So we call it value blend. It's just a secondary piece of content that I'm layering over that is multiplying the values of that light. So it is graduating it. So as you see me pull that in there, and you see me pull that in there, you can see that the edge is getting a little less bright.
Yeah. Okay, well that's really interesting, isn't it? Leaving it there. Everything's looking a bit grey at the moment. Can you take the values of both those left and the right highlights up a little bit, please?
Yes. So as in the brightness.
And the brightness of both of those two lights up a little bit.
So I'll take that up.
We want to keep, them quite hot, but without burning out. Is that such a thing? Can you burn out?
You can burn out. Yes, you can burn out.
So 0 dot. Okay, right. That's got a bit more finesse to it. So that little bit of fall off, I call it fall off, you call it soften. That's a bit of conflict of terminology, but the
well, you're right, I'm wrong.
it's kind of, it's giving the products a bit more of a luxurious feel, something that's slightly nicer. And actually, what it's doing is making much more sense of that left-hand light. It's making the left light and the right light feel like more of a family.
Yes.
Which is very good, because that was, I think that was my conflict with this. It was the two light sources looked different, and they weren't helping the products work as a whole. So okay, I know we don't want to over egg this, but I think that's great. So let's leave that there for a minute. Can you pop back in our spotlight, which is our front color light?
There we go.
Take it slightly darker.
Yeah. Shall I go again?
No. I think it's. Can you almost make that a bit more intense? I don't know. I'm just trying to think of a word.
I mean, I can make it much smaller so that this reflection is much smaller, and I can make it extremely bright.
Let's try. Can you just show me? That'd be really interesting to see.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, so I'll make it significantly smaller. With a 0 on the end of that brightness to see if that's... And then every time I press the big plus, I'm doubling the brightness. So I've got an extremely small highlight now.
Yeah, I mean, that's just amazing, because that's the sort of, I mean, it's that kind of action, physical action, is not possible in the studio. You can't get a light that small to deliver that kind of coverage and brightness. Very interesting. Okay, so go on.
Go back to the previous version.
No. What do you want to show before and after again? Just so we can see that movement.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I will duplicate this light with the settings that it's got now. I'll then hide that, and then I'll go back to that being 18 by 18. Off it, take that off. That, I think.
It's a bit bright, mate.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's a bit big as well.
Yeah, it's doing something completely different.
Sorry, I'm typing in. That's it. There we go. So that's where we were, and then that's where it is.
Okay, let's let that. Can't quite see that yet. Oh, you know what? I mean, can we make that where? So it's definitely better where it is now. So there's two things in my view that perhaps we need to consider to try and finish this off.
Yes.
The wraparound from the left-hand light at the bottom of the product, we said we were going to deal with that once we knew where we were going to end up with that left-hand light.
Yes. Should we do that now?
Yep, let's do that now, if you're happy to.
Yeah, so I'll take that left light. I will... Now I know we don't really want to do anything else to it. I know that I could basically just use a gradient.
So we're flagging off the bottom of the light to reduce this underlighting effect.
Yes. So that needs to be the other way around. So yeah, because we're in computer world, I'm controlling the transparency of this object. So by making the bottom part transparent using this ramp, I can move the points on the ramp to stop where that becomes transparent and not transparent. So I've now killed that. So if I turn off this effect, you can see there's the it's wrapping around the bottom. If I turn it on, then that's...
Okay, so it's probably killed it too much. So can you bring some of that back?
Yes.
But I agree, it's less strange by it not see. It's too bright at the bottom, isn't it? The way the light is catching the bottom of the vases on the flat side is actually too bright. So I think it's just trying to find a sweet spot there.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Stop there.
Yeah.
Make that bit brighter, please. That whole light.
Okay. Interesting. That's quite subtle. That's quite subtle.
Yeah.
I didn't notice it. Update myself.
Yeah, no, it definitely has done. Knock off a bit more light from the bottom left, please, of those vases. Only a very small amount, though. It's what I call a tad. Just a tad. Did that do it?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That was a tad.
So we're now getting to the point where we're tweaking things marginally, and it's very difficult. It'd really be difficult for everyone to see the difference. Really, this is where if I'm in the studio, I'm shooting on a computer. I'll be toggling between the two, the previous shot and this one, just going, can I see the difference? That's the kind of thing. Can you do that easily here? You can do a.
You can kind of do undos. So you can kind of do. I'll undo that change. And then I'll redo that change. Yeah, Control Shift Z. Just reminding myself of the. Yeah. So actually, I can do a high resolution image for you now because we're making these more subtle decisions. Let's look at it at a bit better quality. So I'll just render this image out, and then you can see how it's looking.
Okay.
Bigger on your screen, basically.
Okay, great. Obviously, still appreciate that we're recording two screens, so we're using up computer memory. So this whole process would be quicker normally.
A little bit. I mean, it depends. In this demo, we're using a piece of 3D software called Blender. The process and everything and all these decisions we're making would be the same whatever software we're using with HDR Light Studio. It's just, for this one we chose Blender. So
yeah. Okay.
So that's
great.
what we're looking like.
Okay, I can actually see the dust on my computer screen now. Right. All right. So I'm glad that we have kind of brought this into a slightly high resolution area because, of course, that's how I would always be working, looking at things in incredible detail to make sure that, it's all very well if something looks small and low res, but what does it look like when it's bigger res? Because basically if someone was to use this on the front of a brochure, it would need to have a certain amount of quality to it in order to deliver the result. So what do I like? I tell you the things that I can see much more clearly now that I was having trouble with before. The definition of the shadows that I think are being created by our top spot. If you switch to, can we actually still work with this? Are we still working with this?
No, this isn't live.
No,
but
fine.
I can re-render another one.
No, don't worry. I was just thinking off the top of my head. So I'm now I can see those working in detail. I'm actually happy with them. I think they work. There's not anything in there that I'm overly concerned about. We know there's a few things to retouch. There's a few things that we would want eliminated from the final product image. We got the spots from the top specular, the specular spots from that top light. And funny enough, I'm not certain now that I'm looking at this.
We can, just thinking about this, we can cheat. And I might be able to make it so that the light creates light, but you can't see it in a reflection. So, I could potentially render, get rid of those for you.
That would be great.
I could certainly try it. I mean, it'll take us slightly off track in terms of the Light Studio part because I'll have to make it into an area light.
Okay.
To do that, it might be something better handled separately, and if I manage to do it, I'll record me doing it and fixing it, if you see what I mean.
Fine. Okay.
I don't know. If you're saying you like the quality of light coming from it,
Yeah.
and all it is a case of trying to get rid of those, then I don't see a lot of value in me trying to show you and then failing.
Absolutely. And also, this is the kind of thing that I would expect any image to have to go through a process where it is created, whether it's photographic or it's CG, and potentially there's going to be a second phase to it where, things do get tweaked in Photoshop potentially to deliver the final result. So that could be a second phase that I would consider anyway. So it is interesting how the sort of just seeing this in high res now, the interaction of all these highlights. I'm looking at the pink vase in particular. Can you do a screen grab? Let's just chuck it up on the
yes
on the jam board for a minute, please.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So if I get my pen, just do a little bit of a red one, bit of a marker. Hopefully it's not. Is that going to be very big? Hopefully not too big. So what? Well, I mean, you can just see from me where I'm actually just moving the cursor over the circle. So what I'm looking at...
I can't see your cursor.
Oh, you can't see that. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so I am looking at how we got the shadow... Let me use a thicker one. Hang on.
Yeah.
So we've got a shadow there from the handle from this top light. We've also got the shadow swooping in here. I couldn't see that on the low res version. There's also a shadow up here, but that's fine. I don't mind that. It's kind of quite nicely hidden. These two on the pink, I'm less keen about. So I think we're in the territory here, Mark, where I would be saying to you, I want to have the facility to have a couple of different files here, so that I have the ability to dial back or remove this kind of crossing over of shadows and reflections in the final image. I don't think they're particularly very nice. It's not that they're awful. The one on the right hand side certainly is not bad on the pink vase. This here, the way the shadow is quite heavy, and it's adding in quite a lot of complication into the image. I don't think it's adding any value at all. So what I would say to you is that I think our lighting is right. I'm happy with that. I think someone would be think that's a nice image. However, I would like the ability in Photoshop to have a render. So basically a couple of images. So I would need this image with and without that top spotlight.
Yes.
Okay. And then I will in Retouch, I will blend the two together. And I can record that as a session and actually just very briefly show people what I would do.
Yes. Now, if I take that spotlight out, what remains will be quite dark. In terms of, it would almost all be in shadow, wouldn't it? Because that spotlight isn't there anymore. So, but obviously this is something you do all the time, isn't it? As in, you know how you'll get around that, because it's literally like in the studio, shooting the separate light sources and then playing with merging them together. In the
Absolutely. So I would. I mean, you don't know until you've actually got the two different files in front of you overlaying, and you can see the result that you can actually create. I would be interested to see what the result is. So perhaps do you bearing that in mind, should we switch off this high res for the moment? Is there anything else in here that you want to talk about, or?
No. I mean,
okay.
we could look at
go
doing
on.
a floor.
Yes.
Something that we sit on.
Exactly. I was just about to say a little reflection would be lovely.
Okay.
Just a small one, not a massive one, just to help embed the products onto the surface.
Yes.
And
so there is a floor plane in this scene that. So going back to this view here
yeah,
that I can turn on. So what we've got, Phil, is the oddity of having this physical light
yeah,
that is hidden from the camera,
yes,
but its effect is being seen in the floor here because
Yeah.
it's actually there.
Okay.
So when I give you the plate, I will fix that in what I give you. So I will have to make that light there so that you can't see that in the glossy reflection. So I'll have to give you a pass like that so you
Yes.
get these floor reflections, and then there'll obviously be the one without the being able to see the floor.
Then you take the floor away.
and
Yeah.
then you can comp them in. So
Yes.
it's
That's perfect.
I wish we got everything absolutely right in one shot. I mean, I like it when that happens, but obviously the laws of physics mean that even as a photographer, you can't get everything in one single image, can you?
Most of the time when shooting products, unless it's very basic, I work in elements. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I am fully prepared to look at the different options within lighting, which is what the process we've just been through. Look at how the light's going to work, look at how the surface is going to work, look at how the background is going to work if we're introducing background light, which we're not in this particular case. And then I will see that obviously one is going to interfere with the other. So then I work out how I'm going to shoot my files. So I end up with the correct layers within Photoshop for me to work with. So this is all very much a normal process to me. And it's all about the necessity of, and the drive to trying to get the best image you can, and knowing the different routes and and the different approaches available to you.
Okay. So I think the important thing is to save where we've got to, Phil.
Yes.
make sure we do this.
Can
so
you
I can deliver these files to you.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. And then what I will do, I will record my editing. It won't take long, and then people can understand what I've done to get the final result, and it will be very simple. It won't be complicated.
Yeah, I've enjoyed this. It's been good. I've definitely learned some stuff doing it. Just
great.
I would, I'm not a photographer. I don't like these things all day like you do for a living. And I certainly wouldn't have approached it from my point of view in the way that you've done it. And it's, I think there's some nice, really nice subtlety. And hopefully when this becomes a final image, coupled together, there'll be something quite beautiful about it. So
great.
I'm quite looking forward to seeing that.
So am I. So fantastic. No, I agree. It's been a very interesting process. First of many, I think. So
it's been a bit of a trial run as well, hasn't it? It's the first time we've done this and worked together. And over, we can't sit near each other to do this. So we're doing it over the internet, and that's great. So
fantastic.
I can't wait to see the final image now.
Oh, good. Great stuff, Mark. Well, look, I'm sure you can transfer over those files to me, and however you're going to do it, and I will send it back to you a bit later on today.
All right. Thanks, Phil. That's brilliant.
That's it, mate. Cheers, Ed.
Cheers.
See you.
Bye.
Bye. So here we have the vase shot that Mark and I were working on. I have done a small amount of retouching to it to amend a couple of things, to finesse a couple of highlights, to improve the shot in my view. So let me just take you through what we've got here. I've rearranged my layers up here, so I've just made a bit of sense of everything that I've been sent. So I've got my floor and background in one folder. So spotlight, no reflection. This is our lovely important spotlight that's coming in to give us the color back on the product. Very important. It's a front light. It's a spotlight. It brings the colour back of the product. I don't need to touch that. That was doing a great job. My right hand light here, which I love very much, I thought if I just take my mask off, I've done a bit of work to it because I felt the way the highlight carried up and hit the bottom of the handle was a bit hard. I also felt this area through here on the pink vase was a little bit complicated with lots of overlapping highlights and shadows. So I applied a little bit of brushwork. So I've taken off some of the exposure through here, bringing back some stronger shadow, which I think is nicer towards the back of the product anyway. And on top of the blue vase, just taking off a little bit of that light there, just so it's not quite distracting. It's nicer in my view. With my left light, I've got a left light copy here because I was experimenting with a couple of layers, but essentially I've also done some work to the left hand light. So if I take off the mask, this is where we were. I felt I wanted to just reduce the way the light was catching these bottom two corners a little bit more. I know we were working with that on the shot, however, I felt I wanted to do a little bit more in retouching, just to ground the objects a little bit more onto the ground, onto the surface. I also felt that the reflection of the pink vase in the blue is a little bit strong, plus I think tonality's making it looks a bit flat. So I did a small amount of work in brushing some of that light off there, and this is, so it's quite simple. Here you can see the work that I've done to the left hand light. So reduce it in here and taking it off the two corners, and there we go. Happy with that.